Week 8 of fantasy hockey is already here, and you came to this video to find out players that you need to be adding going into week 8 to hopefully bolster your roster. I'm going to give you a list of forwards, defensemen, and goalies that I think you need to be adding before week 8. This is going to be a good video, guys, and like I always say, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Starting us off with some forwards that I think you should be adding going into week 8, and starting us off with Kiefer Sherwood of the Vancouver Canucks. Now, his roster percentage has scaled up pretty high over the last couple of weeks. He's kind of like a mini Brady Tkachuk so far this season. Left wing, right wing eligible, which gives you some position flexibility. But with Sherwood right now, the Vancouver Canucks are hurting. They have some injuries. He's moved up to the top line with Elias Pettersson and is currently on the second power play unit, but it's not the power play looks that we care about with Sherwood right now. It's the hits. It's unbelievable to see what he's done in the early going with 115 hits through 18 games. A guy that put up almost 250 hits just last season. He's on pace for a massive 300 plus hit season. And in his most recent game where the injuries kind of were felt throughout the lineup, Kiefer Sherwood moved up to a top line role, played over 15 minutes, which is what we've seen over the last 3 games. He had a goal, 7 shots, and 10 hits. That's a Brady Tkachuk stat line. So you're going to be able to get a guy that's under 50% roster to really bolster your hits and shots for the week, especially if you're in categories leagues. This is a must-add player. Moving on to another team that just is full of injuries right now. We have Nyes, Domi, and Matthews, all 3 of them on the IR, which opens up the spot for some of the other maybe bottom 6 forwards like Bobby McMahon here at just 12% rostered. He's now moved up to the top line, and he's on the second power play unit. He's averaged 18 minutes and 30 seconds average time on ice over the last 3 games. And in the 19 games this season, he has 6 goals, 50 shots on net, and 31 hits. A very good mix of shots and hits. Now, he was scratched a little bit to start the season, was kind of playing more of a bottom 6 role, but now that he's moved up to a top 6 role, we've seen the shot rate, the hit rate, and the point production all go up. So hopefully here with Bobby McMahon playing in a much better offensive role, we can start to see some of these offensive numbers increase. Now, the Colorado Avalanche are the opposite of the first 2 teams, where they're starting to finally get healthy. Now, in the Everything Has Changed video that I released on Monday earlier this week, I talked about what we've seen so far in the changes to the Colorado Avalanche power play and their lines. So right now, it looks like Lehkonen has been demoted to the second power play unit with Jonathan Drouin returning. Now returned back to the top power play unit, and he's on the top line with Lehkonen and McKinnon. He's averaging just under 20 minutes per night. He's only played in 4 games this season, so that's probably why no one's really on him right now. If you drafted him, you likely either stashed him on your IR for 2-3 weeks, or you dropped him. But now he's healthy. He has just 4 games played this season, 2 points, 1 point on the power play. The big thing here is how good this Colorado Avalanche power play is this season. Top 3 power play in the league. So pretty much anyone that's getting those offensive touches, they are going to be valuable in fantasy, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Drouin here. Now, he is playing on the right wing, so he's currently just left wing eligible, and hopefully very soon, whenever Yahoo decides to update and refresh their positions, he will likely get that right wing eligibility, giving you further flexibility if you're still able to add him. Moving on to Yegor Sharangovich, someone I've been showing up for the last couple of weeks. He put up just under 60 points last season with 31 goals in his first full year with the Calgary Flames. Now, he is off to a little bit of a slow start, but 3 goals on 35 shots tells me that he's getting a little bit unlucky so far, but it's just the offensive touches that we're seeing from him. There's really not a lot of competition in this lineup. They have been pretty good as a team so far this season, being carried by Dustin Wolf. But with Sharangovich here, you're getting a guy that's going to be line 1, power play 1, under 20% rostered, playing top 5 forward minutes on the Calgary Flames. And I do think at some point we're going to start to see Sharangovich put the puck in the back of the net. His line mates are going to start scoring a little bit more. But as long as he's continuing to see line 1, power play 1 minutes, I have a lot of interest here. Lastly, we have Nicholas Waugh of the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that's been kind of shuffling their lines around a little bit, but right now we're seeing him center the Thomas Hertl second line, and he's currently moved up to the top power play unit, and Dorofeyev is still there. But this Vegas Golden Knights team has scored a ton of goals so far in the early going. You're getting a guy that's center right wing eligible, just 15% rostered. He's been very good over the last week, and over his last 7 games, he's averaging 18 minutes and 30 seconds time on ice on a team that has been one of the best goal scoring teams in the NHL. Through 20 games this season, 12 points, 2 points in the power play, 40 shots and 23 hits. He's actually shooting a lot more than he typically does. He's not really a known shot volume player, but 2 shots per game is enough to get me excited as long as he's playing on the top power play unit. Again, he should be getting good offensive touches here. He's playing alongside Jack Eichel, who is, to me, a top 5 guy for Hart so far this season. So with Nicholas Waugh, a lot of interest as long as he continues to skate in these good minutes. Moving on to the second group of forwards, Kent Johnson has returned from the IR. This is very good news for those who have stashed him. And for those who didn't, it shouldn't really matter here. He's just 7% rostered. You're going to be getting a guy on a team that has been playing very, very good hockey for not really having much in the lineup. But still with Kent Johnson here, he was great right before his return. I thought it was like a mini breakout to start the season. But through 5 games this year, he has 4 goals, 7 points, 3 of those points in the power play, and 10 shots on goal. He returned to the lineup, played only 14 minutes, but again, I think this is going to start to scale up as he starts to get a feel for the game again, and he still is on the top power play unit. So upon his return, even though this top power play has been good, he still returned back to the top power play unit. We know Zach Werenski had that big 5-point night the other night in that crazy game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Kent Johnson was also a big factor in that game with 2 goals. So right now with Kent Johnson, definitely someone you need to be rostering, who was good to start the season, got hurt, and now he's back and healthy, and hopefully we get to see him for a couple more games moving forward. Now, Vasily Podkolzin, I hope I pronounced that right. It's weird because with Hyman and Arvidsson out, like, we know the Oilers are going to play McDavid and Draisaitl a ton here. They have been running 11-7, which gives a big boost to Draisaitl and McDavid. But with Podkolzin here, it looks like they have him skating on the top line and the second power play unit. But as long as he continues to play with McDavid and Draisaitl, 2 of the league's best offensive duos, and he has 30 shots on goal while adding 49 hits. So even if he's not producing offensively, you're still getting a solid floor with the hit and shot volume here. Again, as long as he's playing with McDavid and Leon, I have a ton of interest. The minutes are starting to scale up a little bit, especially with the injury to Hyman most recently. So with Podkolzin here, as long as he continues to skate with McDavid and Leon, I definitely have some interest. Josh Norris has been someone I feel like I've shouted out a few times so far in the must-add videos. His roster percentage really isn't changing, but his production has been very, very good this season. He's a lock on the top power play unit. They really haven't changed much over the last couple of weeks, and this power play unit seems to be set with Josh Norris being a trigger man on that unit. He's skating over 19 minutes per night right now with 8 goals, 36 shots, and 51 hits, giving him a 34 goal, 220 hit pace. It is pretty rare to find guys under 50% rostered that's on such a good goal and hit pace so far this season. I think the shots are going to come eventually. He has gotten a pretty bit lucky, but he has historically a very solid shooting percentage, well over 15%. We know he had that season where he scored 35 goals. So hopefully Norris and this Ottawa Senators team can start to find their offense a little bit more, and we're going to start to see those shots and goals continue to go up. Lastly, we have Fraser Minten of the Toronto Maple Leafs. You heard me talk about Bobby McMahon a little bit earlier, and this team just dealing with so many injuries right now. They've recalled Minten, who was a former second rounder. He had 4 points through 5 games in the AHL, one of their highest touted prospects that isn't Easton Cowan. Right now, he's moved up to the second line and the top power play unit, skated just over 2 minutes on the top power play unit in the most recent game. So I think right now he has some really, really strong short-term value with Matthews, with Nyes, and with Domi all in the IR. Minten's going to continue to get these power play 1 looks. The power play has been a lot better since the Matthews injury, even though I think when Matthews is healthy, this team's at their best. But still, with Minten here, a lot of interest for a guy that's just 1% rostered in some of those deep leagues. You're able to get a guy on one of the best offensive teams on a power play that's been really good over the last 10 games, and that's a very low roster percentage. So just center eligible, so be cautious with that because he does kind of restrict you in your lineup because the center position is extremely full. But if you're just playing a league that just counts forwards or has some flexibility, you're able to roster Minten at just 1% roster on the Leafs top power play unit. Moving on, there have been a couple changes over the last little week in terms of guys moving up to the top power play unit, some injuries benefiting players, and we're going to start it off here with Aaron Ekblad of the Florida Panthers. This is more for the shallow league players, maybe 10-team leagues, 8-team leagues. He's 46% rostered. If you own him right now and you've been hesitant on dropping him, it looks like Juvis Bolinskis has moved down to the second power play unit, and finally we're starting to see Aaron Ekblad skate on the top power play unit. It was really weird because he was on the top power play unit for times last season with Montour, and then they lost Montour, and I thought Aaron Ekblad would start the season on the top power play unit. It was Boquist, Bolinskis, and now it's Aaron Ekblad. This power play is extremely good. This offense is extremely good. The issue with Ekblad right now is that his peripherals just are not where I want it to be, but still, with the upside to play on the top power play unit, I still think he's worth a speculative add. Now, Alex Vlasic's probably the most notable player on this list right now. This is like 3rd week or 4th week in a row I've shouted him out, but these minutes are insane. And now with Seth Jones injured, Vlasic is going to step into a massive role, likely playing well over 25 minutes per night, which is what we've seen over the last couple of games. He is top line, top pair, top power play unit. He has 8 points to start the season with 4 points in the power play. And then the peripherals itself are still really good with 21 shots on goal, 12 hits, and 51 blocks. You're going to get a guy that's under 10% rostered, playing some of the biggest minutes in the NHL right now. Over the last 7 games, he's currently top 10 in minutes. So a lot to like here from Vlasic, who's going to be playing 25 plus per night on the top power play unit. We know this team isn't that strong offensively. The power play isn't the best. We really haven't seen what we've hoped from Bedard this season, but still, with Vlasic here, very low roster percentage and very, very good upside. Now, Declan Chisholm is definitely a more of a deep league ad, but what we've seen so far in the last couple of games is Brock Faber has been demoted down to the second power play unit. It may be time to move on from him. It's going to be a difficult drop, but the peripherals just aren't there. But I digress. We jump over to Declan Chisholm, who looks like he has moved up to the top power play unit, which has been very strong this season. He's on the third pair, so a little bit of caution there. But in some of those deeper leagues, if you're looking for a defenseman, a guy that's going to be on the top power play unit, he has 4 assists over the last 6 Minnesota Wild games. The peripherals aren't very good, but again, if you're playing in like a 14, 16 team league and you're desperate for defensemen, this is definitely a guy I would be looking to add. Luke Schenn looks like he's back to his usual self. I actually own him right now in 2 of my 6 leagues because I feel like for me, sometimes I just draft too many high point getting forwards and defensemen, and I kind of lack the hit categories, and Schenn has filled in perfectly for me. He's back to his usual self. He didn't have a lot of hits to start the season, but over the last little bit, we're starting to see that hit volume go back to where it was a couple years ago. He's currently on pace this season, again, for another 300 hits. So a lot to like from Luke Schenn here, who is a peripheral beast, especially in the hits category. Lastly, we have Caden Goalie of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, next week's a really weird schedule. We have the American Thanksgiving. We have a night where there's all 16 teams playing. We also have a night where there's 0 games. So with Caden Goalie here, he has a great Week 8 schedule, a couple of off-night games, and he's currently averaging 3 blocks per game. So if you're just looking for a defenseman to add to get you, improve your games played for next week, and then hopefully give you some blocks and get you some points, Caden Goalie seems like a great guy to roster right now at just 11% owned. Lastly, we jump over to goaltending. We have David Rittich of the LA Kings. I feel like he's been the most commonly talked about goalie for me. With Kemper going down with injury, David Rittich's going to be manning the net for the next little bit, at least in the short term. He's allowed just 11 goals in his last 7 starts, and that I don't understand why he's just 27% rostered. The LA Kings have been playing very, very strong defense. That's the only downside to Rittich, is he just doesn't see a lot of volume, so his save percentage hurt a little bit, but still his goals against average is still extremely good, one of the best in the league over the last 10 games. So a lot of love here from David Rittich, who should be manning the LA Kings net in the short term. We have Tristan Jarry here. I saw a crazy stat about Tristan Jarry. In his starts this season, he has allowed a goal on the first shot in 75% of his starts. And if I'm not mistaken, in the most recent game on Friday night, Nino Niederreiter scored on the first shot on net on him. So this is a crazy little stat right now, but it looks like he's back to being the starting goalie in the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the goals against average is not going to be good. The save percentage should still be fine because he's seen a ton of volume right now with over 30 shots per game since he's been called up back to the NHL. But again, if you're desperate for goaltending, you need volume in your points leagues. I wouldn't be rostering him in categories leagues. Jarry has a lot of interest for me. Moving on to Jonas Korpisalo, I think Boston might be moving to a 50-50 system right now with Swayman struggling out the gate. This is honestly inevitable with him having a late start to the season. We know where there's some issues with his contract, but he has been giving up a ton of goals, Jeremy Swayman, and Jonas Korpisalo has been the better goalie so far to start the year. So I think they may be going back to a 50-50 split over the next little bit, at least until Swayman starts to find his game and regain his confidence. So I think in the short term right now, in your category leagues, Jonas Korpisalo, I have a lot of interest in. So Tristan Jarry, more of a points league guy. Rittich, Korpisalo, more of a categories leagues guy, because you're just looking for good save percentage and good goals against on a night-to-night basis. Whereas in points leagues, you're just looking strictly for volume and you're looking for the floor points. Now, speaking about a guy that should be putting up a ton of points in the short term, Ingram's currently day-to-day, and looks like Karel Vejmelka is now the starting goalie for the Utah Hockey Club. He's been great in the 8 games this season with a 237 goals against average and a 922 save percentage. If I'm not mistaken, he had a 49 save outing in most recently. So a lot of love here from Karel Vejmelka, just 11% rostered, especially in those points leagues. Him and Jarry have a lot of interest, especially as they continue to see a ton of volume. That will do it it for the must-add players for week 8. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully your fantasy team is doing as good as you hope this season. If you enjoyed the video, guys, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.